Now, Mercedes have been producing the SL in one shape or form since 1950, and you'd think in that time they would have actually sorted out the drain hole issue, but it doesn't appear that they have. We did a video a little while ago on the 107 drain holes, the location of them, and showed what catastrophic damage can be done to the car if you let those drain holes get blocked up. Now, on the later R230 SL, they also have a problem whereby if the drain holes get blocked up, you can get water into the front footwells and also in the boot. But the problem with this car, it has so many or so much electronics in it, and most of that electronics, those cables, the CAN bus cables, run under the carpets. So if you allow water to get inside your R230, SL55, 500 SL, whatever you like to call it, it can be catastrophic and exceptionally expensive to fix. So let's get started. The first drain holes we're going to look at are in the front. So you've got your bonnet release catch here. You lift the bonnet, it's just a simple hand under the star and push up this little lever here. You may or may not be aware of this, but most modern Mercedes have this little bonnet catch here, which when you push this clip in, it releases the bonnet and allows you to put the bonnet up, not at 45 degrees like that, but at 90 degrees. To release that bonnet catch, what you do is you pull the bonnet down very slightly just to take the pressure off it, press that in, and then your hood should go all the way up. So your hood will go all the way up like that, 90-degree angle. And the reason that that is important is because if you are checking out the first drainage holes on your SL underneath here, it's a good idea to be able to get your head directly over. When you come to take this plastic leaf guard off, don't just yank it off. It's got two catches, one on either side, and you have to squeeze those catches in to get this off. These are the catches here. So you're going to be just squeezing those little clips in. Don't go crazy, you don't want to go snapping them off. There's one on each side. The car, when we bought it just under a year ago, had less than 40,000 miles on the clock. I bought it from a friend of mine who had owned it from new, and he tells me that he'd only ever spent 7 days outside his garage. So I am not expecting this here to be full of leaves, dust, etc. Now, unfortunately, it's not possible to unblock this drainage channel from the top, or at least it's very difficult to do so because the actual tube is right in the corner underneath a piece of plastic here, and it's practically impossible to gain access to that. But what you can do when you take that cover off is have a look in here, make sure that it's not full of water or it's not full of leaves, dust and sand, etc. If this is full of water, what you'll find is when it rains, this will eventually fill up and then overflow into the front footwells, the passenger footwell of your car. Now, while you're doing this job, it's a good idea to actually lift the carpets up and make sure they are not damp underneath here. With the 107 SL, and it's the same on this car, they have a kind of sponge material that absorbs water and gets absolutely sodden. If you do get water in here, it's almost impossible to dry out. So just take a moment to lift up your mats and make sure it's not damp under those front footwells. If you want to see whether this drainage channel is free or not, the easiest way to do it is just to pour some water down there. So we're just going to do that and to see where that water comes out. Now, it should come out from behind this trim panel here onto the ground, so we're just going to see if that actually happens. You can see the water flowing out of that little hole there. Difficult to film. Just there in the front footwell. You can also see water flowing out there as well. If you do need to unblock this drainage channel here, the way to do it is from underneath the car, and you'll need to take off this plastic fender lining or inner wheel arch lining here. Now this lining is held on by a series of self-tapping bolts. There's some here, there's another bolt here, there's one up here, and also these Mexican hat rivets here, which should be reusable if you take them out carefully. And the way to get these out is to pry the center section out first using a pry tool. You can sometimes do it with a fork or a small watchmaker screwdriver, and then prying the lower section of the rivet out. Now there are two other drain holes, one here and one on the other side, and the water coming from the windscreen runs down here, and it's not immediately obvious when you look, but drains through here, and it's very common for this to fill up with twigs and leaves, especially if you're parking outside under trees. Just there, and that will drain out just there. I don't know how well you can see that. Finished unblocking the front drain holes. If you've put your bonnet up like this at 90 degrees, don't just try and use force to push it down. You need to release that clip and fold it down at the same time. Now, there is also a drain hole here in the petrol cap. It's not one that blocks very often, but when it does, it can cause problems. And once again, if you want to see if that is free, you just pour a load of water down there and you'll see the water comes out here just behind this rear wheel arch. If you do need to unblock this channel here, you can try using a guitar string. Sometimes a bass guitar string works quite well, or you may find that you have to also take out the rear fender lining to gain access to the bottom of the rubber tube. There are a couple of drain holes just here, right in that corner. You may be able to see those. They have a plastic bridge over there, which presumably is to stop twigs and leaves getting down there, but these can block up and be the reason why your boot fills up with water. This drain hole here runs through a hose which comes out the back of the car. Just to show you. You can see that that comes out here. One of the main sources of electrical problems in this car is dampness in the boot. So whilst you're checking your drain holes, make sure that you also check that your carpets are not damp. There is another drain hole in the boot well. Taking this foam here away so you can see just how much electronics, or how many electronics, are actually in the boot of this car. So if you do get water ingress in the boot, a common source of problems is this pump here, so make sure there's no damp or signs of rust anywhere. To take that out, have a look underneath here. This here just clips out, and underneath here, lo and behold, is your drain hole just there. So once again, pour some water down there and see if it actually drains out. We've got all of this out. I'll just take the opportunity to vacuum clean out any leaves. And while you're here, it's worth checking that your vent pipe here is attached to your battery. And if you do ever replace your battery, always make sure you get an AGM vented battery like this, and that you do attach that vent hose to it. When you're clearing out those rear drain holes, check this channel here and make sure it's not all full of leaves and twigs. There are two more drain holes just here and here. And if you look underneath here, you can see these rubber hoses. And when you pour water down these to see if they're blocked or not, it's a good idea just to gently massage these hoses. One of the reasons that these cars leak through the boot is because these hoses here sometimes get kinked. So make sure that yours is not kinked and is in the right position like that. Now, there should be sufficient fall on these pipes so you don't get a pool of water down at the bottom. Now on this side, the pipe is running absolutely fine. On this side of the car here, you can see that this part of the pipe is lower than that part. So this needs to be pulled in through this clip a little bit more here. If you leave it like that, what will happen over time is that will fill up with water, sand, bits of leaf, etc., which gets washed down this gully here, and then eventually you will start to back up and potentially be leaking through the boot here. I don't think I've ever heard any stories on the doors filling up with water on this model of SL, but it's worth checking while you're at it, just that those drain holes in the bottom of the door there are not blocked. I know on the 107 SL I once had those holes blocked, and when they redid some door panel, the whole door was actually full of water, so it's worth checking. Just before I finish this video, we get a lot of questions following our drainage hole video on the 107 SL about the routing of the filler cap drain pipe, and on this SL, which is partially disassembled, it's relatively easy to see how this is routed and where exactly it is routed. Now what often happens is this rusts out here or here, and you end up filling the boot with water through the filler cap here. I'm going to finish this video here. I'm hoping to restart work on this red 280 SL that we've been slowly but surely rebuilding. We've got to do the fuel tank, just sourcing all the air conditioning hoses and vacuum hoses, so we'll be doing a video on the vacuum pipe system on this car, the fuel tank, the brakes, the exhaust routing, the starter motor. Still got a ton of work to do. A lot of the hard work is done, but we're still a few months away from getting that car started, I think.